From the time we're children, we're taught that worrying about others is a virtue, that sacrifice is proof of love, and that giving without expecting anything in return is the key to being a good person. However, rarely are we told about the importance of prioritizing ourselves. In fact, society has distorted this idea so much that many end up feeling guilty for putting their own needs first. But here's the problem. When we spend our whole lives pleasing others, ignoring our own inner voice, we end up exhausted, dissatisfied, and worse, disconnected from our own essence. Carl Jung, the master of the unconscious, warned us about this. He taught us that every time we deny what we feel, every time we let others impose their will on us, we're feeding an internal void that, sooner or later, will consume us. Maybe you've experienced it sometime. That feeling of being physically present, but emotionally absent, as if you're playing a role that isn't yours, fulfilling expectations you never chose, chasing a life that doesn't belong to you, and yet there you stay, not daring to break free from what's slowly destroying you. The problem isn't that you're incapable of changing your life. It's that you've been made to believe that prioritizing yourself is an act of selfishness. And that's where one of the biggest lies we've grown up with lies. Because the reality is that when you don't prioritize yourself, when you don't put yourself at the center of your own existence, you condemn yourself to a life of constant emotional suffering. And the irony is that, in the end, you end up hurting the very people you tried to please. How many times have you stayed in relationships that hurt you just to avoid hurting the other person? How many times have you said yes when deep down you wanted to scream no? How many times have you ignored that voice inside you telling you something wasn't right, just out of fear of what others might think? Jung taught us that the unconscious communicates with us in many ways, and one of them is through emotional discomfort, that unease, that constant exhaustion, that feeling that something's missing in your life. It's not random. It's your inner self shouting that you need a change, that you can't keep giving yourself to others without first giving to yourself. But this is where many fail. They think that prioritizing themselves means they'll lose others' love, that they'll be rejected or judged. And what they don't understand is that, in the end, the only real loss is their own identity. Jung spoke of the shadow, that hidden part of us we repress because it doesn't fit the image we want to project to the world, those emotions we've been told are wrong, those desires we've ignored out of fear of judgment. But the shadow doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It manifests as frustration, anxiety, existential emptiness. The more we repress it, the more it controls us. And here's the key. If we don't give ourselves permission to see ourselves, to accept ourselves, and to prioritize ourselves, we'll never truly heal our wounds. Maybe you've spent your whole life avoiding this internal confrontation. Maybe you filled your time with distractions, with work, with relationships that don't fulfill you, but make you feel safe. But deep down, you know something's missing. Because you can't run from yourself. You can't fill an internal void with external validation. You can try to ignore it, you can pretend it's not there, but sooner or later it will catch up with you. The people who suffer the most in life aren't those who've lost everything, but those who've lost themselves in the process of trying to be what others expected of them. But here's the good news. You can change that. You can start today, right now, taking the first steps toward your true transformation. But to do it, you need to be willing to challenge everything you've been taught about what it means to live for others. It's not about stopping loving those around you. It's not about becoming indifferent or selfish. It's about understanding that you can only give genuine love when you've first given love to yourself. Because a person who lives in constant sacrifice, who puts themselves last, isn't offering love. They're offering dependency, guilt, and resentment. The first thing you must understand is that you can't heal if you keep allowing the same situations, the same people, and the same patterns to keep hurting you over and over. Jung said that destiny is nothing more than the repetition of unconscious patterns until we decide to become conscious of them. If you keep surrounding yourself with people who don't value you, if you stay in relationships where you're not happy, if you keep postponing your own well-being for the well-being of others, then you're not moving forward. You're just repeating the same cycle over and over. And if right now you feel resistance to these words, if a part of you thinks, no, I can't do that because I have responsibilities, because people depend on me, then I need to tell you something important. No external responsibility justifies abandoning your own soul. No relationship is worth the price of your peace of mind. No duty should cost you your own happiness. Because what Jung taught us is that true healing only happens when you dare to look at yourself without fear, without excuses, without lies. But this is just the first step. Prioritizing isn't just saying, I'm going to take better care of myself. It's an internal revolution. It's a deep process that will challenge every belief you have about love, life, and your own worth. And yes, at first it will feel uncomfortable. It will feel strange. You'll feel guilty as if you're betraying someone. But in reality, the only thing you'll be doing is recovering yourself. And when you do, everything around you will start to change. In the next part of this video, we'll talk about what happens when you finally give yourself permission to prioritize, about the consequences this has on your relationships, your mental health, and your purpose in life. Because once you take that first step, nothing will ever be the same. But here's the key to all of this. When you decide to prioritize, the whole world starts reacting in ways you never imagined. At first, you'll notice resistance, not just from others, but from yourself. The beliefs that have followed you your whole life will make you doubt, will make you feel like maybe you're making a mistake. Guilt will try to trap you, whispering that you're being unfair, that you're hurting those around you. But that guilt isn't yours. It's a reflection of years and years of conditioning, of a life where you learned to do what others expected and not what you really were. The people who've gotten used to you always being there for them, no matter how much it costs you, will start to notice the change. Some will try to make you feel bad about it. They'll call you selfish, distant, changed. But you're not changing for the worse. You're transforming into what you always should have been. Someone who respects themselves, who chooses themselves, who puts themselves first because they've understood that no one else will do it for them. And then, little by little, something wonderful happens. The anxiety that once seemed endless starts to fade. The feeling of emptiness dissolves. The exhaustion, that deep tiredness that seemed to have no explanation, begins to dissipate. Because every time you say no to something that hurts you, you're saying yes to your own life. And here comes the most important part. Because when you prioritize yourself, it's not just you who benefits. Everything around you changes. The quality of your relationships improves. The people who are truly worth it start to see you differently. A space opens in your life for genuine connections, for experiences that really nourish you. And the most striking thing of all is that you start noticing the universe responds differently. Synchronicity, that feeling that things flow, that everything aligns, becomes present. Jung spoke of this. The way the external world reflects our internal world. And when you decide you deserve something better, the whole universe starts reorganizing itself to give it to you. But to reach this point, there's something fundamental you must do. You have to let go. Let go of what doesn't resonate with you. Let go of relationships that only survive because you put in all the effort. Let go of habits that keep you in the same place. Let go of the fear of being who you really are. Because here's the rawest truth. Holding on to what hurts you won't make you stronger. It will only prolong your suffering. And yes, letting go is scary. It's uncertain. We're terrified of the idea of ending up alone, of losing something that, even though it hurts us, at least feels familiar. But you know what's scarier than letting go? Staying trapped in a life that doesn't fulfill you. That's why this process isn't for everyone. Not everyone is ready to face their shadow, to look in the mirror and recognize what they really need. Most prefer to stick to the routine, keep pleasing, keep ignoring that internal void that never fully goes away. But you're not like most. If you've made it this far, it's because deep down you know there's more for you, that you deserve more, that you weren't born to be a spectator in your own life. Jung said that true transformation happens when you stop running from yourself and start facing yourself. And that's what you're doing now by becoming aware of all this. You can't go back now, because now you know you have the power to change your life. No matter how long you've spent prioritizing others, setting aside your needs, ignoring your own emotions, what matters is what you do from this moment forward. And this is where your real challenge begins. Because once you allow yourself to prioritize, the world splits into two types of people. Those who will support your growth and those who will try to stop you. Not because they want to see you fail, but because your transformation forces them to confront their own lives. And many people aren't ready for that. When you change, you force those around you to question themselves. If you were the one who was always available, who never set boundaries, who sacrificed for others, and suddenly you start saying no, start protecting your peace, start acting from self-love, some people will feel discomfort. And that discomfort will make them react. But those reactions aren't your problem. They're their process. Don't feel guilty for growing. Don't feel guilty for changing. Don't feel guilty for leaving behind what no longer resonates with you. Because at the end of the day, no one else will live your life for you. No one else will feel what you feel when you're alone with your thoughts. No one else will bear the weight of your decisions. The question here isn't whether you should prioritize. The real question is how much longer you're going to wait to do it. How much longer will you endure a life that doesn't make you happy? How much longer will you keep ignoring what you feel just to fit into what others expect of you? Because I'll tell you something, no one will come to rescue you. No one will come to tell you it's time to think about yourself. This is a path only you can walk. But the good news is that when you make the decision to prioritize, to choose yourself, to respect yourself, the universe rewards you in ways you never imagined. Think about this for a moment. Imagine a life where you wake up each day feeling at peace, knowing that every decision you make is aligned with who you really are. A life where you don't have to pretend, where you don't have to repress what you feel, where you don't have to constantly sacrifice for others. How would that feel? Because that life is possible. It's not an unreachable dream. It's not something reserved for just a few. It's a reality available to anyone who has the courage to choose it. But the first step depends on you. Don't keep postponing your happiness. Don't keep waiting for the perfect moment. Don't keep letting your life pass by without truly living it. Prioritizing isn't an option. It's a necessity. It's the only way to truly heal, to close those wounds that have been open for so long. So now tell me, are you ready to take that step, or are you going to keep waiting, hoping that one day everything will change on its own? Because I assure you of something. The only moment you really have is this one. There are no more excuses. There's no more time to waste. Because if you don't prioritize yourself, no one will do it for you. And when you finally make the decision to prioritize, something profound shifts inside you. It's not just a fleeting thought or a momentary motivation. It's a change in how you perceive life, in how you relate to yourself and others. Because the moment you put yourself at the center of your own existence, fear starts to fade. That feeling of being trapped in a life you didn't choose begins to disappear. And most importantly, you realize something that was always there, but you never wanted to see. You have the power to decide. You always did. But they made you believe you didn't. They made you think you had to settle, that you had to be patient, that you couldn't challenge the norms imposed on you. But here you are now, questioning everything you thought was true, realizing you can make changes, that you can get out of any situation draining you, that you can choose yourself without it meaning losing those who truly value you. And that's the most interesting thing, because when you prioritize yourself, you don't just transform your own life. You also start noticing who really loves you for who you are and who was only by your side because it suited them. It's a natural filter. The people who truly love you will stay because they didn't love you for what you did for them, but for who you are. But those who were only in your life because it was convenient, because you gave without expecting anything in return, because you sacrificed constantly for their well-being no matter the cost, those people will disappear. And when that happens, at first you'll feel a void, a space that was once filled with people, commitments, burdens that weren't yours. But over time, you'll start to see that void wasn't a loss. It was a space you can now fill with something better, with peace, with purpose, with self-love, with people who truly contribute to your life and don't just take from it. This process isn't linear. There will be days when you feel like you're moving forward and others when guilt will try to drag you back to old habits. But every time that happens, remember this. No one else will live your life for you. And that means every time you give up your well-being for others, you're handing over control of your life to someone else. Jung spoke of the importance of individuation, that process where we stop being what others expect of us and start becoming who we really are. And individuation doesn't happen when we keep living according to others' expectations. It happens when we start listening to ourselves, when we have the courage to face our own truth, when we dare to set boundaries and say enough when something no longer resonates with us. Because the truth is this: you can't heal in the same place where you were hurt. You can't mend your wounds while you keep letting them be reopened over and over. You can't find peace in a life built on the constant sacrifice of your well-being. That's why now is the time to ask yourself an important question, not a superficial one, but one that truly challenges how you've lived until now. If today were the last day of your life, would you keep choosing to live the same way? Because if the answer is no, then what are you waiting for to do something about it? How much longer will you keep postponing your happiness? How much longer will you keep letting your life waste away in a routine that doesn't make you happy? Jung said that life takes on true meaning when we stop living on the surface and start connecting with our essence. Because what holds us back most in life isn't a lack of opportunities, isn't a lack of time, isn't a lack of resources, it's fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of losing what we have even though it makes us unhappy. Fear of discovering that after all, the only one responsible for our happiness is ourselves. But if Jung taught us anything, it's that fear is just an illusion. It's a construct of our mind based on beliefs we've carried our whole lives. And when you dare to look beyond fear, when you dare to challenge it, you realize there's nothing more liberating than taking control of your own existence. So here you are, with a decision in front of you. You can keep living the same way, repeating the same patterns, feeling dissatisfied, trapped in a life that doesn't fulfill you. Or you can start doing something different. You can start prioritizing. You can start choosing yourself. You can start walking in a new direction, one aligned with who you really are. No one else can make this decision for you. No one else can tell you when it's time to start. But if you've made it this far, it's because deep down you already know the answer. You already know you can't keep ignoring yourself. You already know you deserve more. You already know it's time to let go of everything holding you back from being free. So do it. Take the first step. Prioritize. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. Because life doesn't wait, and neither should you. And when you decide to take that first step, when you finally dare to prioritize, something inside you starts to awaken. It's as if a part of your being that had been asleep for years, a part you'd repressed or ignored out of fear of what others would say, suddenly begins to come alive. And in that moment, you realize something fundamental. All this time, the only person who really needed your approval was yourself. For years, you sought others' validation, waited for someone to tell you it was okay to think about yourself, that it was fine to set boundaries, that you didn't have to constantly sacrifice to be loved. But that permission never came, because the world is designed to make you believe you must live for others, that you must conform to what society expects of you. But now something in you has shifted. Now you understand that the only permission that really matters is the one you give yourself. And when you give yourself that permission, when you start acting from a place of self-love instead of fear or guilt, the world starts reorganizing itself in your favor. What once seemed impossible now feels achievable. The opportunities that once went unnoticed start appearing. The energy that used to slip away in relationships or situations that didn't benefit you now returns to you, strengthening every aspect of your life. Because here's the great truth many don't want to accept. When you prioritize yourself, everything improves. Not just your emotional well-being, but also your relationships, your health, your personal growth. And this isn't selfishness, it's balance. It's understanding that you can only give your best to others when you've first given your best to yourself. But this is where many fail. They think prioritizing themselves means just making small changes in their routine, taking a break, giving themselves some time now and then. But prioritizing goes much deeper. Prioritizing is a profound transformation, a shift in mindset, a new approach to life. Prioritizing means you stop justifying the unjustifiable, that you stop tolerating the intolerable, that you stop accepting less than you really deserve. It means you start being honest with yourself about what you really want, without fear of what others think. It means you no longer settle for relationships that don't fulfill you, for jobs that drain you, for a life that doesn't make you feel alive. And of course, this process isn't easy because when you start to change, the world around you changes too. Some people will feel uncomfortable with your new version. Some will try to make you feel bad, tell you you've changed, that you're not the same anymore. And they're right, you're not the same. You're someone who has awakened, who has understood that their life can't revolve around others' expectations. But don't worry about the people who can't accept your growth. Don't worry about those who prefer the old version of you, the one who always said yes, who never set boundaries, who sacrificed without questioning. Those people simply weren't ready for your evolution, and that's okay. Because the people who are truly meant to walk with you in this new stage, those who really value and respect you, will stay. And when that happens, you'll realize all the fear, all the uncertainty, all the discomfort you felt at the start was worth it. Because on the other side of that fear lies something priceless. Peace. Peace of knowing you don't have to keep living a life that doesn't belong to you. Peace of knowing you don't have to keep justifying your happiness to anyone. Peace of knowing that now, finally you're living for yourself, not for others. And in that moment, you'll understand the most important lesson of all. It's not about waiting for the world to change so you can be happy. It's about changing yourself so your world changes. Now the question is, are you ready to do it? Are you ready to take that step without looking back, without fear, without doubts? Because if you are, then you've already won. You've already made the most important decision of your life, choosing yourself. And that, without a doubt, is the decision that changes everything. And when you reach this point, when you finally realize that prioritizing isn't an act of selfishness but of self-love, everything starts to fall into place. You look back and see all those times you put others above yourself, all those situations where you sacrificed your happiness to fit in, to not inconvenience, to not disappoint. But now you understand that you can't keep living like that. You can't keep existing in a version of yourself designed to please others while you wither away in silence. The most ironic thing is that when you start prioritizing, the people who really love you notice, and they respect you more for it. Because when you treat yourself with value, the world responds by treating you the same way. Jung called it projection. The external world reflects what's happening inside you. If you see yourself as someone who deserves respect, love, and care, then the whole universe adjusts to bring those experiences to you. But if you keep acting from fear, from complacency, you'll keep attracting the same as always. You can't expect different results if you keep doing the same thing. You can't heal if you keep prioritizing others while abandoning yourself. You can't find peace if you keep justifying what hurts you. And most importantly, you can't expect the world to value you if you don't value yourself first. That's why today you have a decision in front of you. You can keep living the same way, waiting for one day when everything changes on its own. Or you can take control, start listening to yourself, respecting yourself, and finally giving your life the place it deserves. If these words resonated with you, if something inside you says this message was exactly what you needed to hear, then I want to invite you to do something. Not just for yourself, but for all those people who, like you, are at a point in their lives where they need to wake up. Share this video with someone you know needs it. Leave me a comment telling me which part impacted you the most, what decision you're ready to make starting today. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel, because here we talk about what really matters, what transforms lives, what leads us to wake up and live with purpose. Every time you share, comment, or give your opinion, this message reaches more people. People who might right now be trapped in a life that doesn't make them happy, but who, with just one idea, could change their destiny forever. Be part of that change together. Because if Jung taught us anything, it's that true awakening doesn't happen when the world changes. It happens when you decide to change. And that change starts now. It starts with you. See you in the next video, and remember, if you don't prioritize yourself, no one will do it for you.